Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services, and today I am talking to you about how SEO should inform your content strategy. They have to go together. So just like last week, I was talking about how your content strategy has to inform your content marketing. You can't have one without the other. Well, your SEO needs to inform your content strategy, which then informs your content marketing, and then you get the results that you need out of your content. So we are going to go over the 5 big ways that SEO should inform your content strategy. It's not by any means a complete list, but it's the 5 big ones. So first off, keywords. Keywords are huge, right? That is what Google looks for in your content. That is a big part of how Google determines A, whether you should show up in searches, and B, which searches you should show up for. So you have to know the specific keywords that your audience is using to find you so that you can get in front of them. So pull up your favorite research, your keyword research tool. There are a bunch out there. I use SERPstat, that's my favorite. There's also Ubersuggest, which has a free option. There's SEMrush, which is free up to a point. Ahrefs.com also has a keyword tool. I believe Moz has a tool. There are a whole bunch of options out there. It's generally recommended that you get at least 2 keyword research tools so that you can compare and contrast. Make sure that you're getting the same results from each keyword. If you're not getting the same results from both tools on a particular keyword, it's best to ditch that keyword and look for something else. So, how to conduct keyword research. So, first and foremost is that you need to understand what all the numbers mean, right? So first there's the search volume, which is pretty self-explanatory. That is the average number of searches that particular keyword gets in a month. Now keep in mind this could vary a little bit from month to month. Maybe something has been trending and people are more aware of it lately and you're seeing more searches. Maybe it's dropped off as people have lost interest in that and they're looking for something else. Diet and fitness tips, I'm sure, skyrocket in January, and by March no one cares anymore. So keep all of that in mind when you're looking for these things. But as tempting as it is to go for the keyword with the highest search volume, you also have to keep in mind the keyword difficulty score, or the SEO competition. That's the number, it's a number from 1 to 100, and it indicates how difficult it is to actually rank on the first page of Google for that particular keyword. So if it's a 1, it's super easy. No one else is using that keyword. Go ahead. You're going to get on the first page of Google, no problem, assuming you have all your other SEO ducks in a row. At 100, it's impossible. There are so many people using that keyword. There's so much content out there already answering this question that you don't have a chance of showing up on the first page of Google, so don't even bother. I usually try to aim for keywords with a keyword difficulty of like 30 to 35 or less. The lower the better, obviously, but I try not to go over 30 or 35. If you have a website that's been around for a while, you have a lot of content, you have a really high domain authority score, maybe you can go as high as 40, maybe even 50. I would not go above 50 because that just feels like shooting yourself in the foot, even if you do have a really high domain authority. So my general recommendation is 30 to 35, maybe 40 if you're already doing really well. So next up, you've got your CPC score. CPC stands for cost per click. This is the price you will pay for each click to your website from a PPC, a pay per click campaign. So if you decide to use Google Ads, this is what you're going to pay for every click that you get to your website with an ad targeting that particular keyword. This can be related to search volume and keyword difficulty and all that other stuff. It's also related to search intent and to the specific niche that it's serving. Sometimes you're going to find a really low search volume and a low competition score, but a really high CPC because that keyword has a very high search intent. It's late in the buyer journey. People are ready to buy and they're ready to pay a lot of money, depending on whatever that keyword might be. So that is a bidding war, essentially. So it's whatever other people in your industry are willing to pay to get people to click through to their website using that particular keyword. So keep that in mind if you want to go ahead and run an ad campaign, that is something you will also have to be aware of. If that CPC is outside of your reach, of your budget, then maybe look for another keyword that's maybe a little bit more competitive on the SEO side, but not as competitive on the CPC side. Next up, you've got your short tail versus your long tail keywords, right? So short tail keyword is something like financial planning. It's going to be 1 or 2 words long. That's it. A long tail keyword, as you would suspect, is generally 3 to 5 words long. It's a longer keyword, more of a phrase than a keyword. It's a whole phrase usually. People are looking for something very specific. Now, long tail keywords tend to have a lower search volume, but they also tend to have a much lower keyword difficulty score. So they're easier to rank for, and they're more likely to be in your niche. They're more likely to be, instead of someone who's looking for, let's say, financial planning. Financial planning is a very broad term. That could be anything from saving for college to budgeting to trying to buy their own home to saving for retirement in the early stages of their career, saving for retirement in the late stages of their career. Maybe they're already retired and they're looking for help with financial planning. There's a lot under that umbrella, right? Maybe you don't help with all of those things. Maybe you only help with people helping their kids save for college, right? That's very specific. So if they're searching for that particular term, it's going to be a little bit of a longer keyword, and you are going to have a better chance if you use that keyword of getting in front of them. They're your target audience. They're ready to buy. They know what they're looking for. All you have to do is direct them and say, hey, I'm over here. I have this stuff that you're looking for. Come on over and we can talk about it. So search intent is huge. That's the next part of it, right after the short tail versus the long tail keywords. It's where are they in the buyer journey? If they're looking for a how-to, that could be an exception to the long tail keyword rule. Maybe it's a longer keyword because they're looking for how to do such and such, or why do I need such and such. That can be a little bit longer, but still not late in the buyer journey. That's something where they're in the exploratory phase. They have just become aware that maybe they have this problem, maybe there's a solution to this problem, maybe there's a way they can fix it on their own before they buy a product or hire someone to fix it for them. So you're going to want to direct them to your blog post so that they can get the information that they need there. And then if they're searching for something like I said, financial planner who serves women who are getting divorced, like that's very long and very specific, and they're ready to buy, right? They need to hire someone right now because they're getting divorced, their finances are in a mess, or they're about to be in a mess if someone does not help them right away. So they need to hire someone. That's when you want to direct them to your sales page, right? So if someone's looking how to do something, you don't want to direct them to your sales page. And same thing, if they're ready to buy right now, you don't want to direct them to your blog post necessarily. So keep in mind what your buyer journey looks like for your average customer, and make sure that your content appropriately leads them to your stuff from the keyword that they were searching for, that they were using to find you. Make sure that leads them to the correct page so that you can continue leading them through the buyer journey and convert them into a customer. If you lead them to a piece of content that doesn't match where they are in the buyer journey, they're more likely to click away and look for something else that is serving what they need. So you've got your search intent, and next up is your topics. So I talk about this all the time. I talk to a lot of small business owners and solopreneurs who write their own blog posts, and they just write about whatever they feel like, whenever they feel like it. And that's not strategic, and that's not necessarily going to help you show up in searches, right? You have to know what your audience, what they're searching for, what are their problems, and what are they doing to look for answers to those problems, to look for those solutions. And B, you have to know about your competition. If your competition has already covered a particular topic to death, don't bother covering it on your website, because again, you're going to have no chance of showing up for those search terms in Google. So you got to do your keyword research tool. My favorite, I actually start with answerthepublic.com, and I put in a keyword, just like anything that's generally related to one of my services or my industry in general, and I see what comes up. Answer the Public will tell you some of the most common questions asked around that keyword, and then you go back to your keyword research tool and you put in those long tail keywords that you just found from Answer the Public and see what matches up, what has a great, again, fairly high search volume, fairly low keyword difficulty score. You got to find that perfect match between those two things. So once you've done that, you can also do this in the keyword research tool itself. If you just want to put in a short tail keyword and look, if you scroll down a little bit, usually they'll give you some keywords that are related to the keyword that you just searched, and some of them are going to be those longer keywords, so the long tail keywords. So look through those a little bit and see if anything rings a bell, if anything is, again, related to what you do, and it makes sense to write a blog post about it, and you have not already covered it on your blog. And then again, look at that keyword and make sure that it lines up with search volume, keyword difficulty, CPC if you're doing that, all that good stuff. So now that we know how to figure out what keywords we're doing, where do we put all those keywords? Obviously, you want to put it throughout your content. Google is going to crawl your content to see what's in there. And if there are search terms that people are using and Google knows people are searching for these words and they're using these words in their searches and you're using those words in your content, that's going to tell Google to pair you and your website with those particular searches, which is great. That's what you want. So obviously you need it in your content, but it's much more than that, and there's much more strategy involved. So first up is the headline, right? If you're doing your blog, your keyword research in order to figure out what to blog about, that long tail keyword that you settled on needs to go in your headline. It also needs to go in the slug of that particular blog post. So if you don't know what that is, it's usually, for me, it's avwritingservices.com/blog/the-date/keyword. And I can put that in there. That's the slug. The part that goes after that last slash is the slug. And I use WordPress, so it's super easy for me to go in and moderate the keyword as I see fit. Otherwise, it's just going to automatically fill in the title that I put into the copy of the blog post. It's just going to fill that in automatically, which is usually way longer than I actually want to go into the slug. Usually I just want, like I said, 3 to 5 words in there, and my total headline might be a little bit longer. So you're going to want to make sure that that slug is really targeting that specific keyword. So put it in the slug, and then that's one kind of meta tag, right? So the headline is a meta tag. Again, if you do this with WordPress, it's super easy. WordPress does it for you, basically turns it into a little meta tag. Meta tag is a bit of code in the content in your website. It's not super scary if you're not a coder. I'm not a coder, but again, if you use WordPress makes it really easy. It just kind of inserts that meta tag for you. As soon as you say, hey, this right here, this section of content, that's a headline. And WordPress goes, okay, we'll put this meta tag here. So again, that's why your keywords need to go into the headline to make sure it's going to be to make sure that it shows up in those searches, because that headline is going to be one of the first things that Google looks at to determine if you should rank. It's also going to be one of the first things that your audience looks at. If you do show up in searches, they're going to be scanning. They get a whole list, right, of options that they get to choose from. And if your headline doesn't include the search term that they were using when they conducted that search, they're going to assume that it's not relevant. And they're going to keep moving, and they're going to go on to the next thing. So you got to have it in your headline. And you also need it in your subheadings. So if you have blog posts that are longer than about 500 to 1,000 words, which you should, because the rules of SEO dictate that longer content is more likely to show up on the first page of Google. So it should be at least, I think 1,700 words was the last I saw, was the recommended average blog post length that showed up on the first page of Google. So at least 1,500 words. That's a lot of content. That's like 3 pages in a Word document if you were reading it in a Word document. So break it up with some subheadings, because again, that helps you show up in searches. Each subheading is a meta tag, so you're going to want to make sure that you use relevant keywords. If not ideally it should be the main keyword you're targeting in the blog post. It should be related to the topic so that you're really targeting that keyword really hard. It doesn't have to be. If you're struggling to get that keyword to make sense in that particular headline, don't worry about it. You don't want to force it, but if you can, try to get it in that headline so that again it's getting Google's attention, because again, Google is going to scan those subheadlines before it scans the rest of your content. And again, so is your audience. If they click through to your blog post and they see a ton of content, those subheadings will help break up the content, which makes it easier for them to read and easier for them to skim. Because let's be honest, even though you spend all this time and effort creating these long, in-depth blog posts, most people are going to spend on average, I think it's like 3 minutes, maybe 4 at the most, actually consuming that content. So that's nowhere near long enough to actually read everything. But what they do is they skim, and those subheadlines make it easy for them to skim, make it easy for them to go straight to the information that they need, and then they can get on with their day and get out. And that's exactly what they're looking for. If they see a whole bunch of content and no breaks, they're just most people are going to abandon ship. You'll probably have a few people who will stick around, especially if they already know and like you, but new people are going to go, oh, that's a lot, never mind, I'm going to go somewhere else to get what I need. So keep all of that in mind. Next up is images, and again, WordPress makes this really easy for you. You can, when you say I want to insert this image here, it will ask, there's a little box labeled alt tag. So that alt tag is a kind of meta tag, and that is what is helping Google read the image. Basically, Google is not yet able to read images, although they're getting very close. So maybe by the time this video goes up, they will be able to. So keep that in mind. But in the meantime, that alt tag helps Google read the image, right? And then the description of the image should also contain relevant keywords. So that alt tag, like I said, that's another meta tag, so make sure that is keyword rich. That description is not necessarily a meta tag, but it is another piece of content that Google can and does read. So put in a description in there that is relevant, that actually describes what that image is. So those are the main places that you need to make sure that you put your content. So next you want to do some A/B testing, right? So this is part of strategy, is you should never assume that things are always going to stay static, because things are constantly changing in the world of online marketing and digital strategy. So especially with your headline, I love to test that with the placement of the keyword. So sometimes your keyword will do really well at the beginning of the headline. Sometimes it might do a little bit better at the end of the headline, but have something really powerful at the beginning so that people are motivated to click through. Do some A/B testing. It's really easy to do this with something like MailChimp or whatever email marketing server you use. Take advantage of that to segment your audience and send different members of your audience, send different lists a different headline, and see which one gets the most clicks. You can also do this with a PPC campaign, right? Different headlines, different keywords, different placement of the keyword, and see what gets the most clicks. And then what gets the most conversions. If you get a lot of clicks, that's great. Your headline is really great. But if you're not getting a lot of conversions, that means there's something wrong. Maybe your content isn't really speaking to the needs of people who are searching for that particular keyword. So you might need to re-strategize that a little bit. So take that into account. Next up, and I talked about it a little bit already, but it's content length, right? So Google started this years ago, back with every blog post needs to be at least 500 words long in order for us to rank it, because we like that longer content. Our users want the more in-depth content. I think it's stupid up to a point, because longer content is not necessarily better content, especially if people are just trying to stuff keywords in there, just trying to stuff fluff in there just to make a word count rather than actually focusing on quality content. So always focus on quality content above all else. That being said, Like I said, Google makes the rules, and if we want to show up on the first page of Google, we have to abide by those rules. So users are generally clicking on longer and longer content. They are spending more time on that content. They're more likely to engage with it, and they're more likely to convert into customers. So again, those are the rules. We got to play by them. So make sure, not that it's full of fluff, but that it's really in depth, that you pick a topic and you write all about that topic and you cover everything you can possibly think of in that blog post. So it's super long, it's super rich, it's gonna have a ton of keywords, right? That's another part of it. The longer the blog post is, the more opportunities you're gonna have to put either that one keyword that you're targeting, as well as a whole bunch of other keywords that are related to that keyword, because you want to try to rank for as many keywords as possible. But again, don't stuff your content with keywords. Only put them in when it feels natural, because otherwise Google will catch on and your users will catch on, and crappy content does not convert leads. So keep that in mind. So longer is better. Like I said, I think the average was like 1750, well, it was like 1,750 words. More recently than that, HubSpot looked and found that of their 50 best performing blog posts, the average length was like 2,300 words. That's a lot. That's more than 2,000 words, right? And I hear more and more professional content marketers and SEO strategists saying that they never write a blog post shorter than 2,000 words or 3,000 words. That's a lot. So again, do what you can, create those really in-depth pieces of content. But again, if you can't do it every day or every week, don't do it every day or every week. Do it every other week. Do it once a month. I would say no less than once a month, but do it at least once a month. Ideally once a week. That would be my preferred if everyone could make that happen, but that's not a reality for everyone, especially if you're creating your own content and you have a million other things to do. So quality and consistency matter much more than just pounding out a ton of content. So that leads into my last and final point, which is new content, right? That is the basis of why you should have a blogging strategy. You should have a blogging schedule, because that will hold you accountable and make sure that you actually publish blog posts on a regular basis. But also, publishing that new content is going to get Google's attention. That gives Google more content to index for your website, which gives Google a better idea of what your website is all about. So it can do a better job of pairing you with the people who are looking for you. It's a win for everyone, right? It's a win for you. It's a win for the people who find you because they're looking for you. It's a win for Google because Google did its job really well. So publishing that content, that new content on a regular basis, really helps with that. The date is also important. Google takes a look at when content was published, and generally speaking, newer content is perceived to be more relevant because we live in a world that is constantly changing, and stuff that is even only a few months old might already be out of date. So if someone comes to your website and they see you haven't published a new blog post since April, they're going to wonder if it's still relevant. They're going to wonder how committed you are to the business, if anyone is still behind the website, or if it's just gone dormant and someone forgot about it. So absolutely make sure that you are consistently publishing new content on a schedule. And that is it. Those are my 5 tips for making sure that your SEO strategy is informing your content strategy. If you want to know how your content strategy should inform your content marketing, check out last week's video where I talked about that. And that is it. You can find me at avwritingservices.com. If you have any other questions about SEO or content strategy or blogging or content marketing or anything related to any of those things, you can reach me directly at info@avwritingservices.com. Thanks so much. Have a great week and happy marketing.